Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jeffrey Hayzlett, CEO of the Hayzlett Group, and Gail Weisswasser, Vice President, Social Media Communications, Discovery Communication.
This is like official and everything, and it's so white. I feel like I'm on a Steve Jobs commercial right here, something like this. Right? That's still okay to say, right? That's cool. I know I saw all these great things. Did you guys see that? Probably it's one of those cartoons that was floating around about Steve Jobs showing up at the pearly gates. St. Peter was there with a big book, opening up, looking, checking the names, and he said, "I have an app for that." Oh, come on, people, that's funny. Let's get started here this morning. I thought it was good to watch the video. Gail and I were backstage watching the video, and it was interesting because we're going to be talking about people and the P portion of all this stuff about social media, because it's interesting because the video was talking about all these things, interaction with people, but it's also taking the element out of it, which is kind of cool. You know, Gail, kind of get started with the things, and then we're going to kind of shoot back and forth with a couple of questions talking about this P word. Today, I think the social media, everybody's talking about this thing like it's some being, entity, and so forth, and I keep saying it's been around forever. It's really been around since the dawn of time, except for now that we just get to go online, and it's changing the way that we communicate back and forth with companies. You know, we used to have this very impersonal relationship with a company, and a company forced you to have to do business with it between 8 to 5, and they said, we're only going to talk to you from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We're only going to deal with you, and here's our 800 number. You have to call into this, you know, telephone tree. You push 1 for this, 2 for this, 3 for this, 4 for this. And I'm not sure who the sadistic son of a bitch that created that first kind of thing, but they did it, and it's perpetuated itself. But what this is doing is driving that out, you know, and it's driving away and adding more of the personal nature to what we do and how we do it. And with companies now, Discovery, I mean, you've got, 75 different kind of personalities and entities?
Well, we have 75 different Facebook pages, right?
Okay.
We have 13 networks, countless shows, and many, many different platforms online. And I think that fifth P of the person can represent both the consumer, the person at the other end of it, and also the company. I think it's much more incumbent on companies now to develop a personality online. You can't be this kind of nameless, faceless, personality-less corporation anymore. People won't be interested in you. Your fans, your buyers, your consumers, they're interested in you now because of who you are, who you stand for, and that really can show through online through your various social platforms.
So, I mean, but how do you do that? I mean, so like when I was at Kodak, and let's go back 2 years ago when I was there, and even go back a little bit further, I named the very first chief blogger ever. And people thought it was a publicity stunt. And then all these other companies started. Then I named the very first chief listening officer. So other people to kind of develop these personalities. But it's kind of different. How can a company do that and yet still keep the individuality of each other?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to understand your product. I mean, for us, we have television shows. So each one of our pages that represents our television shows is very different. The shows, our audiences are different, the themes, the tone, the talent, everything is different. So it's very important that the people who manage those pages, who are posting the content, truly understand the DNA of the brand. That has to show through in every post. It has to be accurate. It has to be genuine. It has to be consistent with what people expect from that brand. Otherwise, those platforms are not going to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I talk about a brand. People talk about this living, breathing, and it's like I control the brand, or you got brand officers and so forth. But a brand there's two things. Brand is something you put on a cow. Okay, that's how it got started, and that's the way in which the definition really pull forward. And it's really nothing but a promise delivered. So it's about how you deliver the promise, and it's made up of all these individual people. And the other thing is, I want to tell you about the people side of it with a big corporation or a big company like Discovery or Kodak or others. You don't have to lose the people aspect of it or the personality. I can remember, and literally one time I've told this story to audiences before, where the communications team, folks like you who came up to me and said, Jeff, we don't think this is an appropriate tweet that you send out. We don't think bite me is an appropriate thing to send out, as a corporate officer. And I said, well, I disagree with you based on what the guy said, and it's my frickin' account. I'll say what I want.
Right.
And then they said to me, well, you need to be nicer. So that was their rule that they put on me. So the next time I wrote, please bite me, you know, to the person that I was pissed off at the next time. But you know, there's no reason why you can't have that.
Right, but how do you separate the personality of the identity of the person doing the posting from the brand that they're posting under?
So what's the difference between walking in a store and seeing someone in a store that works for you, let's just use that, that's got hot pink hair, tattoos, you know, literally everywhere, you know, piercings everywhere. Now, and some people would be frightened by that. Other people would welcome that. And so,
Right.
what's the difference?
I would say there isn't much difference, except it can be on a much larger scale when you're talking about, you know, a page with 6 million fans.
That's exactly I mean, that's the big thing, is that's what I think about the social media side of it. You know, I said that it's been done before. We used to have the Kiwanis Club, Rotary Club, and all these other places where you used to have social media, and that's the way we did it. Now we put it online so that all the people who speak with Klingon can speak to all the other people who speak Klingon all around the world, and all those people who make fun of those people who speak Klingon
Right.
can do that as well. And that was funny too. You guys have got to wake up this morning. Maybe Brian's got to give you some coffee or something. But you know, and I think you have to be that. You know, I'll tell you, I took flack because I was out there doing it when no one else was. A lot of people weren't doing it. I mean, there were a lot of people doing it, but as a corporate officer, there weren't a lot of folks who were doing that. And I can remember my team coming to me and said, Jeff, we've got bad news. And I said, what? And they said, you know, because corporate officers aren't supposed to be heard from. You're not supposed to talk. You're not supposed to, you know, only told the company line. And they said, Forbes magazine just named you the celebrity CMO. You remember when that happened?
Right.
And they came to me and said, ooh, that's terrible, Jeff, that's terrible. And I was sitting there quietly going, I already knew I was leaving Kodak, but I said, well, that's bad. And then secretly I'm going, yes, way to go. You know, this is really good for my own personal brand, right?
Right.
And but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I want, you know, if I'm in a company, I want people, especially with a brand like Kodak or a very public brand, I want people to have that personality. I want them to have that. Now, we might say, here are some rules, you know,
Right.
here are some guidelines, you know, because
Right.
you can never escape the man, right? And so you got to have some of that. Do you guys have some of that in what you do, or what?
I mean, we don't encourage the people who post on our behalf necessarily to use their names or real identities, and that's as much for their own protection and privacy as it is for anything else. I think there's a way to achieve a balance between being a person and expressing a sense of humor and a sensibility about the content without actually needing to have your name on it. I mean, all of our accounts are either the name of the network or the name of the program. We don't use you know, personal names, and there's, you know, a lot of reasons behind that, but I don't think it really detracts from the uniqueness of the pages or the personality of the pages. I mean, I think we have a lot of followers because people have come to really appreciate the tone that we're achieving on those pages.
You know, I can think back, we used both personal names and we had some official titles too. I mean, like we had, if I go back to the Kodak days, and or even companies that I've got today that I'm chairman of, like iTrax or others, there's lots of different ways that we do that, and we use both, you know.
Right.
And I'm okay with having an official. If I were the chief marketing officer in a company today, I would still have an official account. So like we had Kodak CB, which stood for Kodak Chief Blogger. We had Kodak CL for Chief Listener, so that people knew this was the official kind of place to go. But at the same time, you know, we had hundreds, if not thousands, of employees who were twittering, you know, kind of on our
Sure.
behalf, doing their own thing. And also in that piece, I didn't mean that they didn't get in trouble, because they got in trouble from time to time. We would have, you know, I remember one gentleman who tweeted out about McCain, didn't like McCain, and tweeted that. And of course, I had to pick up the phone and say, hey, you can do whatever you want in your personal time, you know, and off time. But if you're going to use Kodak in your disclaimer anywhere in your bio,
Right.
then my friend, we can't do that. You
Right.
know, I might share your views, but we can't do that. And you got it. You know, you can do that. So that's
Right,
that
yeah, we
personal
have
side.
guidelines. I mean, we love having our employees tweet about our programming. That's a, you know, huge fan base right there, and we encourage it, and I mean, we depend on it. But, you know, there's some guidelines. You can't tweet out confidential stuff. You can't tweet out stuff about our talent that's not public. You can't tweet out when a show is coming back on air if that's not been announced yet. We can't tweet out, you know, super negative things, because it detracts from the company. I mean, we're not trying to curtail free speech, of course.
But don't you make mistakes though, right? I mean, have you guys made mistakes, like publicly? Like where you done something wrong? I mean, they're people. You're going to do something.
Sure, I mean,
No one's got, I mean,
you know,
my
there's
my
the
favorite
occasional typo, which makes me crazy. But
That's it? That's the biggest
you
thing
know,
you've
I
done?
have to say, I'm going to probably jinx myself, but you know, we really haven't had that, you know, that awful moment where you realize, you know, oh God, this went from the wrong account or something like that. We really try to be pretty careful, and you know, you can check your posts and double check your posts. And
My biggest
do all
bonehead
that.
move was I was in Tokyo, and the team told me it was when we were retiring the brand Kodachrome. And after 71 years, we were retiring the brand Kodachrome, and which had 100 just before everybody starts bitching and tweeting in a second here about, oh, you killed it off, at 104 different new iterations of film after that time that are better. But we decided to retire it, and they said send the tweet out at 6 o'clock. It was 6 o'clock Tokyo, so I sent it out, and within 3 seconds they meant 6 o'clock Eastern time. And so here we'd planned for a year to do this, and I was getting it out. And I remember getting the calls, because at that time I was carrying 2 cell phones, so the phone rang, I'm in a cab, and Jeff, did you realize what you just did? It's a material change, it affects stock, it does all this thing, and I'm freaking out now. So I'm calling my wife, because at the same time it went to my Facebook. Honey, here's my password, get on Facebook, take it off. I called Jenny Cisney, here's my password on my account for Twitter, get the damn thing off. And then I'm now on the other phone because people have already retweeted it.
Of course.
Oh, shit.
I mean, once it's out, you can't get it back.
No, yeah, we did. And I was able to get a hold of 26 different people and beg them
Wow.
to take it off and delete it. But that's, I think, the power of some of the community.
Yeah.
You said, look, I made a mistake. Please help me out. Please help me out.
Right.
So, and it helped. It was good. It was 6 in the morning here, so that was really good. So it was, you know, it's like nobody
Yeah.
was watching.
Right.
Yeah, they loved getting my
Yeah.
call at 6 a.m. Right. Well, they were tweeting, so I figured, what the hell, I could call them. So.
So here's a question for you. Brian this morning said that in social media, we are trying to reach an audience with an audience with an audience. What do you think of that?
You know, yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. For some people, I don't think anyone can say this is it. I think for Brian, I think it's totally appropriate because of what he's doing and the platforms he's trying to build and the way in which he's doing and has become a thought leader. I think it's absolutely appropriate. For others, it is really just about their family or the way in which they do it, you know. Mm-hmm. That's how I originally got started. I did it so that my daughter, my son, my wife, and all my family members would know where the hell I was at because they never knew where I was at because every day I was in a different city. And so that was my way of doing it. And so but then I started getting these Kodak followers, then I started getting all these marketing people, now I got 40-some thousand people, and so, you know, it became something different, right? Mm-hmm. But it's different, I think, for different groups. And I think that's what's unique about this platform on the people side, the personalization side of it. It's you know, I see Jan sitting here in the room. It's different for Jan than it is for me. And it's different for, you know, for Jeff Mesnick, who's here from Socialize Your Stuff. I mean, it's different for different people on how you use it and the way in which you do it. So whatever's right for them is the way it is. And I don't look at it as saying it's just one thing, you know,
Right.
and it's a different way. Because for some people, you could see that as, you know, almost like if I'm trying to reach this platform and all I want them to do is retweet my stuff to get it out to a broader platform, well, that's almost like vomiting up information to some extent. So, I mean, it is. I mean, and so after a while, people kind of get tired of that, right? And, you know, even some way in which you know, determine your scores, whether it's, you know, cred or clout or these other things, you know, it's based on your retweets and sharing. And I think that's cool, but it's not just about that. I think it's about whatever you want it to be should be how you should be measured or what you want it for. You know, and it's a little different.
I think for us, it's a little bit of both. We love being able to have, you know, direct one-on-one conversations and interactions with our fans. It's, you know, really an unprecedented opportunity for networks. In the past, I mean, you had, it's sort of the definition of broadcast. I mean, you have this content that you're sending out to a huge, huge audience. And in the past, you could never hear back from your fans. You could never hear back from audience and get this amazing immediate reaction, response, find out what they think of what's on your air. So we love getting that one-on-one response and being able to, you know, get on that granular real-time level. At the same time, the audience with an audience with an audience is crucial for us because, you know, if it's 5 minutes to 9 and we have a fan tweeting or posting about, oh, they're about to watch Discovery Channel at 9 o'clock, well, you know, we want those audiences and we want their audiences and those the audiences from them because that's that great, you know, viral, the exponential effect of viral.
Well, it's the engagement side of it, which I think is good too. I mean, it's interesting to watch groups, companies, people go through different stages of evolution on the way in which they do it. and I think it's different maturity levels that people are going through and the way in which they approach the social media side. I think the first stage is get everybody, it's kind of, almost scorched earth mentality. So if a new brand's coming in or brand's coming on to Twitter or social media, they go out and try to get every fan that they can.
Right.
And then they start to engage those fans. And later on, the real maturity level is they start to realize, it doesn't make a difference how many I have. It's the way in which we engage, the conversation we have, and what is the result of those conversations. Because I think we forget about that. It's great to have all these fans and all this other stuff. I'm watching people on Facebook now de-like their friends. We're all going, at least I don't know, I know a lot of the folks I'm going through. When you first got on Facebook, you were worried you were going to hit the 5,000 and then, oh, I'm done. And now I'm watching people take people off because I don't want to have that creepy guy that I knew in high school that I really didn't like then, and I sure don't like him now, but yet I was my friend. And so you're watching that kind of evolution. I think brands are doing the exact same thing. And I see a lot of brands who spend a lot of time going after the viral, going after the thing of getting a million fans. And I used to tell my teams, as I still tell companies today, as fast as they come to you is as fast as they will leave you.
Well, I think fans are doing that exact same thing. They are bombarded, their streams are cluttered with their friends, their brands, people that they liked. Maybe they liked a company because of a promotion or a contest or things like that, which we really try not to do for that very reason. We don't believe that that's real engagement. We don't.
On the contest side?
Well, no, we don't believe in making people like our pages in order to get to other content. We don't like gate things.
Oh, I think that makes sense. That's kind of cool. I do like contests because I will tell you from a selling standpoint or whatever, they work.
Sure.
They work.
Yeah, but we don't like to look at our fan base and think, okay, well, that was built on contest. We like to believe that our fans are there because they like our content, because we're delivering relevant content that's enhancing their viewing experience and that's related to what they're interested in. So, but I do think fans are starting to winnow out because they're overwhelmed. There's too much stuff in those feeds, and so the bar is higher and higher for brands to stay in that feed. That's prime real estate, and in order to be kind of invited into that special place, you have to really, provide something that's valuable to them.
It's not so much being invited, it's about the staying, right?
Right.
So how do you
Invited
make the
staying,
connection? You got to make that connection. But in the end, if you're a brand, it's about how do you get so personal with the P side of this thing so you get the stickiness with it to get the follow through really on the sale, because that's in essence what you want to do. Do you watch, maybe it's not so much for discovery, but are you watching and seeing as an observer, Gail, it was interesting when people would first got more involved in Twitter or first got more involved in a lot of social media, when they would bitch and moan, the company would try to fix it real quick and then give them something for free. I watch companies go, overboard in trying to, let's quiet them down by giving them something. It's like a kid that's crying, here, lollipop. And shut them up. And do you still see that going on?
Yeah, I think that companies are just getting credit now for just responding and trying to fix the problem. It's one thing to try to mollify people with something free, but I think the better tact, and I think the one that has more longevity and ultimately engenders more respect, is to actually respond and try to figure out what the problem is and how to fix it.
And be real.
Right.
I always talk
be
about
honest
that.
about what you can't fix.
But I think that's you talk about a lot of things. I just always try to be me, and if I can't be me, I don't know what the hell. I don't do a good enough job of that. So on my own, so I can't be something else. And I think the same thing should hold true for most companies. So there are times when you just tell the customer, sorry, shut up. We've done everything we can for you.
Right.
You're unreasonable, and that's okay. And then you get these threats. You get threats. It's constantly bombarded with threats. I am going to go public. Okay, knock yourself out. Feel free. And by the way, or they say some vile, mean things. That's the other thing. I remember I was on Celebrity Apprentice, and people wrote like, you have a face for radio. That was like, oh, you bastard, who would say that? Or another one said, oh yeah, my wife's a personal trainer. Would you like her number? I thought, that's like, people write this. There's even worse stuff than that. There's a lot of worse stuff. I had a guy who used to constantly put me in his feed on his blogs, and he would say something outlandish like, Jeff Hazlett should go to jail or something like that. And of course, my mother gets Google feeds on this stuff, and so she caught it and wrote, "This guy's comparing you to a mass murderer, Jeff." And so I finally tracked the guy down, phoned him got him on the phone, and said, "What's wrong with you, SOB? What's your issue?" And he goes, "Well, every time I put you in my feed, my numbers shoot up." And I thought, okay. I said, "Don't you have a book coming out?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "I'm personally going to critique your book for Ad Age. I'm going to call Ad Age, and I'm going to ask that I personally review and write the editorial on your book. How do you like that?" And then he agreed to take the columns down. But, so, because that, you have to kind of get into that thing. But there's some,
Right.
It's a vile kind of thing that goes on.
Absolutely there is. And
It's
we
people.
we see it across our pages all the time. And, there's a fine line between what do you leave up there because it's free speech and what's,
So do you guys have rules about,
defamatory.
because, you got
Yeah.
some, when somebody writes something, I'll use this. Not that someone would think Sarah Palin's real sexual, but when you guys had the Sarah Palin show,
Right.
and I didn't even know this, but I would imagine there were people who wrote some vile sexual things that they would even do by watching her show.
Right.
Am I right?
I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure. There's a lot of those Tea Party guys out there. And, oh, come on. She's fun. So what do you do?
Right.
Because you've got this whole thing of keeping the promise with you're going to do it. But do
Well,
you
we
something?
have real life talent. These aren't made up characters. These are not even actors. For most of our shows are real life people who have interesting jobs, and that's why they're on the air. So if something is posted that's a personal attack, especially like a personal physical attack on
Yeah.
the talent, we take it down.
Yeah.
If it's defamatory, if it's racist, if it's something that's just really an intensely personal attack, we take it down. If it's someone expressing a political view, it stays up. They've got a right to say that. These aren't our sites. They're not. It's not on our just tlc.com. This is on Facebook. This is on Twitter. We can't do anything with Twitter anyway. But so we try to walk a very respectful line about allowing people to have an opinion without leaving up stuff that's very offensive.
Yeah, you're gonna sometimes, Jay, even the people factor. You get some different things. We once had somebody who threatened to come into our booth at night and urinate on the computer equipment to take it down. You get things like that. As bizarre as that. And of course, we went and sent security after that guy. But I still see him at conferences from time to time. So you get
Yeah.
that side of it. Well, it's just we also had a gal named Tina, and she had 42 men who followed her who only follow women named Tina. So you get some weird stuff
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
weird.
Some really weird stuff. It's bizarre.
Very weird.
Yeah, it's great. But I also like the personal nature of how people are really getting in, and it feels like I'm in the lobby and somebody runs up to me and says, "Hey Jeff, how are you?" And I have no clue who this is, but it's somebody who
Right.
follows me on Twitter, and so you kind of get, and you have these friends who are now real friends. And they're
Right.
living with you and by you in different ways. And that's
Right.
really the way it goes with the shows and some of the companies now, right?
Yeah, well, sure. I think that with shows we don't get that as much. We don't get that personal. We're not individuals, and we don't have personal names behind our account, so we don't get that as the way that you would with the personality that you that you sort of cultivated at Kodak. But I do think that social has completely reinvented and redefined our whole definition of how we view each other, how we view people in our lives. And you look across your Facebook friends, and you've got like your real life friends, and then your blogging friends, and then your professional friends, and then the people who are pitching you from agencies, and it's all this weird mishmash. And some of them maybe you could pick out of a crowd, and some you can't, and that's just
Yeah,
sort of the messy life we live in now.
Yeah, I think the aspect of it is, are they really friends? They're not friends. They're associates. There's
Some
a
are
difference.
friends. Some of them are.
Well,
good
I
friends.
got it. Those are friends. But
Right.
we have but you use the term, and that's why I'm jumping on it,
Right.
of blog friends, of Facebook friends, and this. There's different levels
Sure.
of friends or contacts.
Right.
And it doesn't mean they're all friends. I have people who follow me. I know they're not friends.
Right.
They're enemies.
Right.
And you have to find those people and hunt them down. But they are. If you don't think I'm a corporate officer, or I'm on the other side of the marketing side, that I'm not looking at my competitors, following them, setting up fake accounts to follow them, you're crazy. because that's what they're doing. I mean, I can tell you when I was in battles with other major corporations, when I was the CMO of Kodak, they were doing it. We were monitoring. We watched them do attacks on our sites. We watched them engage in terms of different things that they would do. Because it's people. I mean, and then people are going to do that something. But I think we've got to be careful in saying they're friends when they're not really friends, because they're not friends.
Have you ever gone to a party and like seen someone across the room and said, oh, I think I'm Facebook friends with that person, and then left and never spoken to them? I always find that a weird phenomenon. It's like, here's this person that I'm in this weird sort of social connection with online, but yet when I see them at a party, I don't know them well enough to go talk to them.
I don't know. I kind of feel like I want to smoke a cigarette now. That thing come on.
So what do you think about what do you think about influencer measurement, like Clout and Cred and these services? I mean, is there such a thing as an influencer? Is everybody an influencer online?
Everybody's an influencer at some level, good or bad. Everybody is, because I mean, and I got a new book coming out in January, and I'm talking about friend sourcing, because I think friend sourcing is probably the key thing that most of us were trying to get.
What is friend sourcing?
Well, it's look, when I know that my daughter Lindsay, who's here, and she goes out shopping by herself, and she sees a dress that she likes, she goes into the thing, she takes a picture of it, and she sends it to her friends and said, what do you think?
Got it.
That's friend sourcing.
Sure.
I saw friend sourcing years ago when I was working at a label company, and walked up on the 3rd floor, looked out of the parking lot, and half the cars in the lot were red. Half. Red pickups, red vans, red. And I got to thinking, so I started going around and asking people, and it's because after they bought a car, they'd say, hey, you ought to get one just like mine. And so they started that, and so I started catching on to friend sourcing back then. I didn't know what to call it then, but when I started seeing this phenomenon, and I think that's what we do today. So today we ask our friends. When I got my iPad, I thought, how many damn apps are out there? There's a million of them. So Saturday morning, I sent out and sent a tweet to all my friends saying, I got a new iPad. Which app should I get? All my friends fed it back to me. I made a spreadsheet of all those, and I took the top 3 in each category, and that's the ones I went and looked at. And then I found which one I wanted. So I friend sourced the things that I thought were good. Why do I like that? Because those are my friends. They think like me. They dress like me. They're, to some extent, they're like me, right? And so they're the people I like. They're the people I respect. And I think that friend sourcing is going to take another whole aspect of it, and it's much more personal. And you're seeing a lot of different services out there that I think that are doing those kinds of things.
I mean, it's amazing. I think we've been doing that for years and years and years, but social has made it so much easier and so much more immediate.
Yeah, well, and so much minute to what you might source or friend and do and so forth. So I think we've taken some of that aspect of it. It's even the communication. But I want to get back to this measurement thing, because we jumped on that about whether like Cred or on others, and I've been very familiar with Cred because Jody, I know Jody's probably out in the audience today with People Browser, and they've done a good job with that, as other ones have. And I think, I think there are people who do have more influence over than others. I think that's without a doubt. Whether it could be Lady Gaga, it could be Charlie Sheen, but I think the people around you have more credibility, and those people have just as much a right to be measured, not only measured, but rewarded and participating in the process. And I think as we more democratize that and get more personal with that, I think there are going to be a lot more things that you can do. I mean, you can have a greater influence on a truck that someone's going to buy than Charlie Sheen will.
Right.
Because, I know we're a Ford family now because we have, ranches and farms and so forth. So, we don't drive little electric cars because you can't get your horse in them. And so we drive other, big beefy vehicles and so forth. But we all get those same things. Why? Because we started that way and we socialize that way, and that's the way it is. And I think Cred and other tools will show you how to do that better and who you can trust.
So should brands, what should brands be looking for? Should we be paying attention to the big numbers like the Lady Gaga numbers?
No.
Or how do we get to those
No.
friend sourcing
Let me tell you why you don't pay attention to it. I remember once I was at Minimum in France, and I was speaking, and someone said, I don't like endorsements. I don't like to do them. I think they're a waste of time for that spec with the big stars. And then someone said, well, why did you go off and hire Lady Gaga for your camera? I said, I didn't. The other guys did, so that tells you how well that works. Because he thought that we had done that. So, but I think that those folks, the smaller ones, yes. When Kodak, well, let me give you a good example because I know we got about a minute to go. When the team would come to me and say, Jeff, we own the mommy bloggers. We're doing a great job with them. This is our audience for our digital cameras. To get to the chief memory officer, it's mommy bloggers. And they would come to me and they would parade out these 3 mommy bloggers and say, these are the 3 most important. Now when I go run a credit score of them, I find out of 20,000 mommy bloggers, okay, let's just give this an example, they're number like 700, number 1,000, and number 9,000. Well, where's number 1, number 2, and number 3? Where are the ones in my key categories, verticals that I want to reach in different geographical areas? Those are the ones I want to influence. So yeah, that's where it's going to play importance, because now I can target them, hopefully influence them, engage them in conversations, win them over, and be a fan so they can evangelize the things that I want to talk about.
Right.
Okay? Well, we're running out of time. This has been great. Thanks for letting us come up here and talk about people. This is Gail, Discovery. Make sure you watch Discovery. They're really smart people. Thanks a lot.